The Celestial Academy stood atop the floating island of Ethermore, where beings from across the 7 realms came to master their powers. Emily was the only human among a sea of supernatural students, a fact that made her both a curiosity and a target. She had earned her place through the mortal trials, a brutal examination that tested wit, courage, and adaptability. While others wielded fire, bent shadows, or commanded the winds, Emily relied on her ingenuity and the ancient artifacts she'd studied for years. Her acceptance letter had been a miracle. Her survival at the academy would require something more. Erling noticed her on the first day. He was a frost giant's descendant, towering over most students with ice-blue eyes that seemed to pierce through stone. His reputation preceded him, the undefeated champion of combat class, known for his ruthless precision and cold demeanor. Some whispered he'd never smiled, not once in 3 years at the academy. Emily tried to stay invisible, keeping to the library's dusty corners and avoiding the training grounds when they were crowded. But invisibility was a luxury the universe wouldn't grant her. It started small. Her books disappeared from her desk. Her assigned training dummy was frozen solid each morning, forcing her to spend precious time thawing it while others practiced. Laughter echoed through the corridors whenever she passed, though no one would meet her eyes. The instigator was Valeria, a fire witch from the Ember Courts, whose family had purchased their way into nobility. She had decided that Emily's presence was an insult to the Academy's prestige, and she made it her personal mission to drive the human out. Look at the little mortal. Pretending she belongs, Valeria crooned one afternoon in elemental theory class, her voice dripping with manufactured sweetness. Tell me, Emily, what's it like knowing you'll age and die while the rest of us are just beginning our lives? Emily's jaw tightened, but she said nothing. Engagement was what bullies craved, and she wouldn't give Valeria the satisfaction. But Erling, seated 2 rows behind, felt something unfamiliar stir in his chest. Irritation, perhaps, or something closer to respect for the small human who refused to break. The situation escalated 3 weeks into the semester. Emily was crossing the Aurora Bridge, a crystalline structure suspended between the dormitories and main campus, when Valeria appeared with her entourage. The bridge was empty, deliberately so. Emily realized too late. "I've been thinking," Valeria said, flames dancing between her fingers. "Maybe you need a more direct message about where you don't belong." Emily's hand moved to the small pendant around her neck, a relic that could generate a protective shield. But before she could activate it, Valeria struck, sending a whip of fire across the bridge. Emily dove, rolling beneath the flames. Her years of survival training kicked in. She might not have magic, but she had reflexes honed by necessity and a mind that calculated angles and trajectories faster than most could cast spells. She pulled a vial from her belt, condensed wind essence, expensive and rare, and shattered it at Valeria's feet. The resulting gust threw the fire witch off balance. "You dare?" Valeria shrieked, her face contorting with rage. The flames around her hands intensified, turning from orange to white-hot blue. What happened next would be debated in academy halls for months. Valeria unleashed a torrent of fire, intent on reducing Emily to ash. But Emily had studied fire witches. She knew their patterns, their arrogance. She rolled to the side, produced a mirror shard artifact, and angled it precisely. The reflected flames caught Valeria's own robes, and suddenly the bully was the one screaming, batting at the fire consuming her uniform. That's when Erling arrived. He'd been returning from a private training session when he heard the commotion. In 3 long strides, he crossed the distance, frost erupting from his palms. With a gesture, he encased Valeria's flames in ice, extinguishing them instantly. But he was looking at Emily. Her hands were steady despite the adrenaline, her stance defensive but unafraid. There was a fire in her eyes, not magical, but something perhaps more dangerous: determination, the absolute refusal to be broken. "The fight's over," Erling said quietly, his voice like grinding glaciers. "She attacked first." Valeria sputtered, her singed robes smoking. "That mortal should be expelled." Instructor Thorn arrived seconds later, his enchanted staff glowing with authority. His eyes swept the scene, the scorch marks, the ice, the 2 girls facing each other like warriors after battle. "Explain," he demanded. But he was too late to prevent the confrontation. Too late to see the truth of who had been the aggressor for weeks. He saw only the aftermath, and in the Academy's rigid hierarchy, aftermath was all that mattered. Both of you. My office, now. As they walked in tense silence, Erling fell into step beside Emily. She glanced up at him. Surprised. You didn't have to help, she murmured. I didn't help, Erling replied, though his tone was softer than she'd ever heard it. I stopped a fight. There's a difference. But Emily saw something in his ice-blue eyes that contradicted his words. Respect, perhaps, or the beginning of something else entirely. In Instructor Thorne's office, Valeria wove lies with practiced ease, painting herself as the victim. The instructor, bound by protocol and influenced by Valeria's family connections, issued his judgment. Both students would face disciplinary action. Emily accepted the unfair punishment with the same quiet dignity she'd shown throughout. But as she left the office, Erling stopped her with a hand on her shoulder. Tomorrow, he said. Training grounds, Dawn. I'll show you how to counter fire witches properly. Emily blinked. Why? For the first time in 3 years, Erling smiled. It was slight, barely there, but unmistakable. Because the instructor stopped the fight too late. But your training? That's starting right on time. As Emily walked away, she felt something shift in the Academy's cold atmosphere. She'd been targeted, attacked, and unfairly judged. But she'd also found something unexpected. An ally. And perhaps, in time, something more. The frost giant's descendant, and the fragile human, an unlikely pair in a world that valued power above all else. But sometimes, strength came in forms the powerful could never comprehend. And Emily was just beginning to discover hers.